Big breaking news. President Trump is speaking now from so-called alligator Alcatraz. He just finished touring the new migrant detention center in the Everglades. Let's listen.
America's newest migrant detention center. It's incredibly built, and you're seeing that yourself. That's why I said, let the press join us on our walk so they can see what's happening. It's known as Alligator Alcatraz, which is very appropriate because I looked outside and that's not a place I want to go hiking anytime soon. But very soon, this facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet. We're surrounded by miles of treacherous swampland, and the only way out is really deportation. And a lot of these people are self-deporting back to their country where they came from. Quite a few. We're amazed at actually the number. We took the FEMA money that Joe Biden allocated to pay for the free luxury hotel rooms, where he's paying hundreds of millions of dollars in New York City, and we used it to build this project. And Narana was just a little fraction of that money. The money they spent on that project, I happen to know the real estate developer. He never really made that much, but he became very wealthy. With luxury, he didn't do well. With people that are not exactly luxury, he's made a fortune. I want to thank Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier. Where is James? Where is he? You do a very good job. I hear good things. I hear good things about you from Ron too. No, you really do. He's even a good-looking guy. That guy's got a future, huh? Good job, James. I hear you did really, really fantastic. Worked hard. You're like in the construction business for a few days, right? Huh? Congratulations. For all the hard work and to make this facility possible. It's amazing. Thanks as well to Florida Agricultural Commissioner Wilton Simpson. Where is Wilton? Where are you, Will? Hi, Wilton. Been a long time. Thank you. Congressman Byron Donalds. Where's Byron? Hi, Byron. How are you? Good. Florida Speaker of the House, Daniel Perez. Daniel? Daniel, thank you, Daniel. Why, you didn't want to sit up here with us, Daniel? Executive Director of the Florida Division of Emergency Management, Kevin Guthrie. Hi, Kevin. Good job. Acting Director of ICE, Todd Lyons. Todd, great job. And Senator Joe Gruters. He is a great guy. Where is Joe? We love Joe. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Joe is great. With the help of those incredible Border Patrol agents, we now have the lowest level of daily border crossings ever recorded. As you know, last month, the month of May, just got released 2 days ago, the number of illegal aliens into the United States was zero. Zero. Even I find that hard to believe. Somebody must have gotten in, I think. I don't know, but they say zero. And the people that count them are radical left Democrats. So when a radical left Democrat tells me it's zero, I believe him. But there's still much work to do. In the 4 years before I took office, Joe Biden allowed 21 million people, that's a minimum, I think it was much higher than that, illegal aliens to invade our country. He invaded our country just like a military would invade. It's tougher because they don't wear uniforms. You don't know who they are. More than the populations of New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Phoenix, and Philadelphia combined. That's what came into our country from prisons, from mental institutions, from street gangs, drug dealers. It's disgusting. This enormous country-destroying invasion has swamped communities nationwide with massive crime, crippling costs, and burdens far beyond what any nation could withstand. No nation could withstand what we did, and we're in the process of doing it, but we have some great people doing it now, and you see them up here with me, but it's, I'd call it like an unforced era. It's sort of like men and women sports. It's sort of like transgender for everybody. How could they have done this to our country? And we're never going to forget it. Last year, 15% of all the hotel rooms in New York City were used to house illegal aliens at costs that they never got for luxury. They never got this much for luxury people coming in from the wealthiest places on earth. They made more money with the illegal immigrants with many rooms costing more than $300 a night, 6 times the rent of a typical American family. In Denver, Colorado, the city was forced to cut $10 million from its police and fire department budget as part of a $90 million plan to house illegal aliens. And it's a population that's growing and growing and destroying Denver and growing. And again, it's destroying Denver. And it's destroying many other cities, too. Likewise, one of the city's largest hospital system is drowning in unpaid medical bills, unpaid in the billions, after their emergency rooms were flooded with tens of thousands of illegals, leading to the closure of critical services. And these are really critical services. They can't even keep them open for American patients. The American patients were treated worse than any illegal immigrant. In Los Angeles, 1 in every 4 students in the public school system is from a household headed by an illegal, and most of them don't speak English. So they're in a school system, and they don't have interpreters. They don't have anything. They don't speak English. What a mess. What a mess. Unforced error. All these people allowed to come in. The United States is now spending $78 billion a year on translation. Okay, think of that. $78 billion a year on translation, and smaller numbers on special education programs for non-English speakers in our public schools. So $78 billion, I think that's not a mistake. I would say $1 million maybe, hundreds of thousands of dollars, $78 billion, Joe, on translators and non-English speaking work. Federal government, the Justice Department, it's more than twice the cost of maintaining the United States Justice Department, what we're spending on translation and other things to help. In total, the average illegal alien costs American taxpayers an estimated $70,000. That's each, $70,000. I think that number is even low. If you care about balancing the budget, the single most impactful step we can take is to fully reverse the Biden migration invasion. One of the worst invasions we've ever had. We've never had an invasion like this. We've had invasions, but we've taken care of them. We've never had an invasion like this, and it's with us. And we have some very bad people out there looking to do big harm. That's why the One Big Beautiful Bill includes funding for 3,000 new Border Patrol officers and 10,000 new ICE agents. And I've gotten to know the Border Patrol and ICE very well. Unlike Kamala, she was the border czar, but she never saw the border. She never made one phone call. She was some border czar. She would have been some president. Probably would have been slightly better than Biden, though. I had to run against both of them, you know? The one guy, it's like a fighter. You knock out the one guy who's doing badly, then they put somebody else in. But fortunately, she was a stiff also. Otherwise, I would have been very angry. I would have been extremely angry. The heroes of ICE will also help round up and remove members of the savage drug cartels, which are coming back into our country. And we got them out. Now some of them came back in. We just got them out again. And that's going to be a vicious cycle. But these are foreign gangs. They're horrendous people, killers, that have infiltrated our territory, including 8 which we have designated as foreign terrorist organizations, which gives us a lot more power for speed and getting them out much easier. And we had a great court victory, as you know, on Friday that allows us to do what we have to do from the Supreme Court of the United States. In 5 months, my administration has already arrested over 2,700 members of the murderous Venezuelan gang known as Tren de Aragua, including a pack of these sadistic animals arrested last month with over 280 guns. And these are guns of the latest caliber. These are guns that were made over the last period of less than a year, getting brand new guns, the latest and the greatest. Every day, our brave law enforcement officers are hunting down and deporting migrant criminals who have committed heinous crimes, including more than 13,000 murderers, 11,888 to be exact, but I'd probably say the 13,000 is right also. Think of it, 11,888, and more than half of them, they committed more than one murder. So, Ron, many of them are out of here already, but it's still it's a hell of a number to be confronted with. Just this year, ICE agents in Miami have apprehended illegals with arrests for murder, kidnapping, rape, child sexual abuse, and arson, people of the worst order. We're getting these monsters out of the United States, out of Florida, out of all the places that they're in. And on January 20th, I signed an executive order empowering governors and state police to be deputized to enforce federal immigration laws. And Ron's already taken advantage of it. It's a tremendous advantage for the states. Most of them are doing it. Actually, the blue states tend not to do it. Even a couple of them have, though. And I want to express my tremendous thanks to the state of Florida for embracing this opportunity and being a true partner. They've worked so well with the federal government. It's been just a beautiful, beautiful partnership. So, Ron, I'd like to thank you personally. You are my friend, and you'll always be my friend. And we may have some skirmishes even in the future. I doubt it, but I will always come back because we just we have blood that seems to match pretty well. We have a relationship that's been a very strong one for a long period of time, and I appreciate it, very much appreciate it. And also, Secretary Noem, I'd like to have you say a few words. You have been unbelievable, the job you've done. You and our favorite person, Tom Homan, have done, and your whole staff, because it's a lot of people, and Tom acknowledges it all the time. He respects you so much. He respects the staff that you both built. And you're really doing one of the great jobs. And it was great that you could work with Ron in Florida so well, built such a great facility. So please say a few words. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know if this will work. Well, thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I want to thank you for putting the safety and the security of the American people first, and the way that you never lose focus on making sure that America stays our priority and that the families that live here get the chance to grow up and to raise their children in communities that are safe and that give them an opportunity to pursue the American dream. This facility here is a fantastic representation of what can happen when all of government works together and when it's accountable to the taxpayers and to the citizens that live here. The President signed an executive order that allowed us to build partnerships with states and with local law enforcement officers, which is exactly how things should function in this country. More power, more authority given to people locally so that they can take control of their own destiny. And so we have already been working under the 287G program to deputize law enforcement officers, whether they be state highway patrol, local sheriff's departments in all of our states, and allow them to go out with our ICE officers, our Border Patrol officers, and make sure that we're getting the worst of the worst off of the streets. We also recognize that as we've been doing that and returning people back to their home countries, that we need detention facilities. We need beds to put them in place so that they can have their due process before they return home. And this facility is exactly what I want every single governor in this country to consider doing with us. What happened to start this conversation was that a young man named Jimmy Percival in my office, my general counsel, who came from Florida and used to work here, called up the Attorney General and the governor and said, hey, what do you think about partnering with us on a detention facility that we could put in place that would allow us to bring individuals there. There's an airstrip close by. You guys volunteered the assets that you have and the connections that you have and worked with Kevin extensively so that we could come here, have their due process given, and return them home to their countries. And in 8 days, this facility has been stood up. And I want everybody to recognize that detention facilities that ICE adheres to is a higher standard than is required at state levels, at local Department of Corrections facilities, sheriff's offices. This is a state-of-the-art facility, air-conditioned, isolated, though, for security purposes, which is very helpful. And I appreciate so many people being willing to work together to make a project like this happen. Right here on this location, we'll have about 3,000 beds. Other location will have another 2,000 beds that will allow us to bring individuals across the country that we are bringing in and incarcerating for violating our laws and immediately get them out of the country as soon as we possibly can. It's exactly what we need to be perpetuating in other states. And what I would say is I want all of you to notice these flyers that we've got, is that everybody who sees these flyers or anybody who sees these news clips should know you can still go home on your own. You can self-deport. If you go on the CBP Home app and go home now, you will get the chance to come back to the United States legally. You will get the chance to come back and do it the right way. If you don't, you may end up here. And you may end up here and being processed, deported out of this country, and never get the chance to come back. That is the consequences of breaking the law in the United States of America. Listen, our job is to uphold the law. This is a country of laws. We have a border now, and because we have a president that cares and recognizes that we need to be a nation of borders and a nation that upholds the law. If you break the law, there's consequences. We will deport you, and you will never get to be a United States citizen. You'll never even get to come back here and work and to pursue the American dream. But if you decide you want to go home now, go home, and we'll help facilitate it. We'll buy your plane ticket. We'll get you there. In fact, I just got back from Panama, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Honduras. Those countries are excited to get their citizens home. They're setting up programs to loan them money to buy houses when they get there, help them with food assistance, get their children educated, scholarships. They want their citizens that are living here in the United States illegally to come home and to be a part of their economy and help their countries grow. So this is a win-win for everyone. And I just want to end, Mr. President, by thanking our law enforcement officers, by thanking our ICE officers and our Border Patrol officers for what they do every day. They are out on the streets, and violence against them has increased over 500% since Trump has gone back into the White House, because he's upholding the law and because a bunch of liberals, socialists, and Marxists are out there lying about what President Trump is doing. President Trump is upholding freedom by what he is doing. The freedom to live safely in this country and to do things legally and to have justice.
And we have to interrupt the president and the DHS secretary there on the left side of your screen, because on the right side of your screen, the Senate is poised to pass President Trump's massive budget bill. Vice President J.D. Vance is there on the floor, and it looks like he's about to cast a tie-breaking vote. Let's go right to the Senate. We are looking live at the Senate floor right now, where a vote is underway for President Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill. This is a big spending bill that would essentially fund the president's entire agenda. It has been quite a haul to get to this point. Senators have been in this vote-a-rama for more than 24 hours, and now they are bringing this to a full vote. It looks like it's 50-50, but you can see on the left side of your screen there, the vice president is on the Senate floor, expected to cast a tiebreaker vote. Let's listen in to see if he says anything here.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 50. The Senate being evenly divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative. The bill as amended is passed.
So there you have it. The so-called big, beautiful bill is now past the Senate floor. As close as it gets, a 50-50 vote here with Vice President J.D. Vance casting that tie-breaking vote. I want to bring in Jay O'Brien, who's there on Capitol Hill. Jay, you heard the Vice President there say as amended. The bill as amended has passed. They've just gone through this more than 24-hour vote-a-rama, presenting and voting on a number of different amendments here. So what does this bill look like compared to the House version, and what kind of hurdles does it now face going to the House?
Yeah, Diane, just very quickly, the vote count here, we did have 3 Republican senators vote against this, and it's why J.D. Vance had to come in and break the tie. They are Susan Collins of Maine. We expected her to vote against this. She has serious issues with the Medicaid cuts in this bill and also the cuts to SNAP food assistance. Also, Tom Tillis, who you had heard about yesterday and over the weekend, who had his own issues with the Medicaid cuts in this bill, and Rand Paul, who had fiscal issues with this bill and the fact that it raises the debt ceiling. So those were the 3 Republican no votes. But one notable Republican who voted yes was Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. And when you talk about those backroom deals, passage of this bill at the 11th hour here, after more than 26 hours of a vote-a-rama, really hinged on backroom deals, and most especially a deal with Lisa Murkowski. And while we're still trying to work out the details here, what Lisa Murkowski sought was a kind of of a carve-out, was a kind of exception for Alaska, particularly on those SNAP cuts. There was a provision in the bill that would require states to pay more for their SNAP food assistance benefits, depending on the payment error rate in their various states. And there are a lot of states with a high payment error rate above 6%, which was the threshold, but Alaska has the highest payment error rate, upwards of 24%. All of it is technical, but here's the thing. Under this bill, prior to this deal, Alaska would have to have chipped in a lot to pay for food assistance in its state. And what we see now is that Lisa Murkowski appears to have gotten some kind of carve-out for her state on work requirements and other SNAP issues that protects them from having to pay more. So what we really saw Republicans do at the 11th hour here was make a carve-out largely for Lisa Murkowski, although it likely will apply to some other states, but largely for Lisa Murkowski on SNAP payments to get her to flip from a holdout to a yes.
And Jay, talk about the political pressure surrounding this vote. On the one hand, you have President Trump, who was calling up some of these senators, speaking to them directly, threatening to back primary candidates against them the next time they run for re-election. And then you have Elon Musk now also rejoining the debate, saying that he will fund opponents for anyone who votes to support the bill. And overall, you have a lot of people in the Republican Party who ran on platforms of being fiscally conservative.
Yeah, and the Elon Musk factor didn't move the needle much in the Senate, but it is going to be a live ball in the House because, remember, we are not done with this bill yet. Now that it is cleared through the Senate, albeit by that slim margin, the vice president having to come in and break the tie, it goes back to the House where this bill, because of some attendance issues not long ago, a little over a month ago, passed out of that chamber by just one vote. And we have already heard from more than a dozen House Republicans, including the ultra-conservative House Freedom Caucus, who say they don't like the way that this bill was changed in the Senate. And in particular, they don't like the fact that the Congressional Budget Office estimates that this bill will add an estimated $3.3 trillion more to the federal deficit than the House version was supposed to. The House, this is an extra $1 trillion more add to the deficit, the CBO says, than the House bill was estimated to do. And so we've heard from a number of fiscal hawk Republicans in the House who take serious issue with that number. They are pushing for Speaker Johnson to slow down here, not try to bring this to a vote by Friday. We're also hearing messaging from some moderate House Republicans as well to that effect, who don't like, for instance, the Medicaid cuts in this bill and the changes that were made to that effect in the Senate. And so the question facing Speaker Johnson here is, does he still commit to that July 4th deadline? Does he try to hurdle to a vote here in the House by Friday, try to get this passed and on the president's desk by Friday? Or does he kind of bend to the pressure that we're seeing, particularly from his right flank, and try to slow this process down? And by the way, that was even more complicated today, Diane, because President Trump told our colleague Rachel Scott that he was somewhat uncommittal on that July 4th deadline, despite the fact that he had been pressuring for weeks now both chambers of Congress to get this bill through and onto his desk by Independence Day.
All right, Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill for us. Jay, thank you. And let's go to White House correspondent Karen Travers a little bit more on this. Karen, how significant is this for the president to have this pass the Senate, at least? It still has to pass the House, but to have this hurdle clear?
Well, this is a very big deal, of course, for the president, Diane. This is a significant bill for him. It has so many of his key campaign promises: no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, funding for immigration enforcement, and also the extension of the 2017 tax cuts. Anytime the president is asked about the one big beautiful bill, he keys in on the tax cut angle of this and talks about how big that will be for millions of Americans. Now, you heard Jay there talking about the deadline that he imposed on lawmakers trying to get this to his desk by July 4th. He indicated today that he would love to still see that happen, but also that that could be difficult to do because now this piece of legislation heads back over to the House. And there are some lawmakers there, as Jay was saying, who don't like what the Senate has passed. So the president was giving potentially a little bit of wiggle giving potentially a little bit of wiggle room there on the deadline. It is important to note that that is a self-imposed deadline. Nothing would happen if the bill does not get done by Friday. They can work on it into next week. The president, though, was also asked by our colleague Rachel Scott about those Republicans who were not on board with it in the Senate. That also can still apply to some Republican holdouts in the House. The president said today that they needed to get on board and said that there would be consequences for those who did not. Diane?
And, Karen, President Trump's also at so-called Alligator Alcatraz right now. He just wrapped up a tour of that new migrant detention center. What's his plan for the facility now?
This facility down there in the Everglades is starting operations today. We heard from the DHS Secretary Kristi Noem and the Florida governor, who say that people could start being brought there as early as tomorrow. The president was asked if this could be a model for facilities where they would bring in people that they are detaining as part of their mass deportation plan, and he said yes, it would be. He was also asked earlier today if this is by design, given the very harsh terrain there and pretty terrible conditions with alligators surrounding it in the Everglades there, and said yes, that is the concept. 5,000 people could be held there, though the indication was that they would not be kept there indefinitely. The idea would be to bring them there and then to deport them. The president, of course, has brought people out of this country and sent them to that mega prison in El Salvador, also Guantanamo Bay, as part of this effort to carry out what he campaigned on, the largest deportation effort in U.S. history.
And we can see the president there talking with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He really thanked him for his partnership in making that a reality. But I want to bring Jay O'Brien back into the conversation to talk a little bit more about the newly passed big, beautiful bill that just passed the Senate. Jay, what are you hearing from House Republicans on this?
Yeah, so this is now going to ping pong back to the House, as you know, Diane, this bill, and it's facing some serious headwinds. Speaker Johnson is under some serious pressure from hardliners in his party to try to slow this process down because they don't like the changes made in the Senate. They don't like the extra spending, they say, that was added in the Senate. And one of those hardliners, holdouts, Chip Roy, was actually standing just a few feet away from me when I was talking to you moments ago, and he caught up with our House producer, Lauren Peller, and he said to her and other reporters that in his view, the chances of this bill passing out of the House are, quote unquote, a hell of a lot lower now, he said, than it was a few days back because of these rewrites made in the Senate. So Mike Johnson has got his work cut out for him to wrangle his House Republican conference together again, pass this bill. It is something he has done before, but it's still going to be hard work.